mycorrhizae. But what the fungi is mycorrhizae? Many of our funky English words have Greek origins, like acrobat and marmalade. But if we break down the word mycorrhizae, we get two roots, myco and rhiza. Both of these have meanings in Greek. Myco means relating to fungi, while rhiza means relating to roots. Simply put, they're just root fungus. Many words relating to fungi are super confusing until you break them down to their roots, and then you can have a greater understanding of what they really mean. Scientists have divided the natural world into 5 different kingdoms: bacteria, protists, plants, animals, and fungi. That's right, fungi are completely different from plants. They're actually more genetically related to humans than any plant species. They are a beautifully diverse and adaptable kingdom, but this exact adaptability is what makes them so hard to classify in an evolutionary sense. Depending on who you ask, there are about 4 to 8 different divisions of fungi. Now, this isn't because scientists can't make up their mind, but because the research into this area is so new, and genetic testing is what's really leading the way in creating the phylogenetic tree of fungi. Anyways, the divisions you're probably most familiar with are the basidiomycetes and ascomycetes. These are the 2 mushroom-producing fungi. The ones you'll most commonly see in the store are Basidiomycota, just like this one that I dropped my phone on. As you can see, it has a rounded cap, and that's one thing that differs it from ascomycetes. Now, most edible mushrooms that you'll find in the supermarket are Basidiomycetes, like portobello mushrooms, king oyster mushrooms. But there are still edible ascomycetes, such as morels, which are much rarer and a little more sought after, and also harder to cultivate. These mushrooms, though beautiful, dangerous, and delicious, are only a tiny part of a huge underground organism called mycelium. Now, there are many types of fungi. Another type of fungi is a chytridiomycota. Now, I know this mouthful sounds like a lot, but it usually just means that their spores have a flagella at the end, meaning they are motile, which means they can move using metabolic energy. Another phyla, maybe, is Zygomycota, which, according to a website by the University of California, Berkeley, is a division of fungi. But if you check some other sources in Wikipedia, it says it's a former division of fungi. Now, my hypothesis is that UC Berkeley, after denying my college application, is now attempting to hinder my research by supplying me false information about fungi, and I will not stand. Anyway, these phyla are bread moles, mostly reproducing asexually. And lastly, we have Glomeromycota. Glomeromycetes are fungi that usually inhabit the rhizosphere. Now, this somewhat confusing word is another conglomeration of Greek roots. We have rhizo, meaning roots again, and sphere, meaning sphere, kind of like troposphere, or atmosphere, or I didn't study for apes. But the rhizosphere is the layer below the soil. It is a huge ecosystem of roots, microbes, and fungi. These guys are some of the stars of this video. They are the arbuscular mycorrhizae of the forest, and they form symbiotic relationships with all kinds of trees. And these fungi are known as arbuscular mycorrhizae. This again is nothing more than a type of root fungus, but they're not the only kind of mycorrhizae. There are also ectomycorrhizae. Arbuscular mycorrhizae infiltrate plant cells. They penetrate into the plant cells, dispersing throughout each and every cell, while ectomycorrhizae, rather than infiltrating the root cells, prefer to ensheath them, squeezing in between each cell, creating what's known as a Harding nest. While this all sounds very confusing, the biggest takeaway here is that fungi coexist with everything in this planet. They are hugely adaptable, and they can be found almost anywhere. Symbiotic relationships with fungi cultivate a perfect environment for biodiversity to prosper. Now that you fully understand these guys, where can you find them? For ectomycorrhizae, many of these actually reproduce sexually, meaning they must produce mushrooms to release their spores. Arbuscular mycorrhizae, on the other hand, tend to reproduce asexually, so they don't tend to produce mushrooms, meaning to find these frugal fungi, you have to look underground at the roots of the plant, and sometimes even at the plant cells. This is another reason why fungal classification can be extremely difficult and why research is so new. Here is a prairie coneflower, Ratibida pinnata, from the Asteraceae family. These beautiful flowers were a part of a study looking at the restoration of prairies. This study, led by Elizabeth L. Middleton, showed how the inoculation or introduction of native arbuscular mycorrhizae can benefit native species of plants. It was shown that prairie coneflowers that had been inoculated with native AMFs suffered less from herbivory and grew more even after herbivory. This guy right here is the common milkweed, also known as Asclepias cereacea. They are a perennial plant that is integral to the health of the monarch butterfly populations, since their larvae must eat this plant to survive. And studies have shown that certain fungi can have huge impacts on the monarch's health. The mycorrhizal fungi alters the chemical composition of the milkweed leaves, which can impact the transmission of certain parasites, especially protozoan parasites, such as Ophryocystis electroscura. This protist parasite is known to infect monarch butterflies and can have negative effects on their health and survival. Milkweeds inoculated with these fantastic native fungi grew up to 98% larger and produced 82% more latex as well, showing that not only do they have benefits to the butterflies, but also to the milkweeds themselves. Though mycorrhizae are exceptional, there are disparities between the efficacy of certain fungi. The same study found that fungi that were not native, also known as commercially grown fungi, had actually inhibited plant growth. This world is so vast. There is so much room for fungi to inhabit a wide variety of ecological niches. This world is so vast. There is so much room for all these fungi to inhabit a wide variety of different ecological niches. From their symbiotic relationship with plants to their parasitic relationship with insects and their saprobic lifestyles, fungi truly encompass a huge part of our world. You can find them in the backyard, in your basement, and at the supermarket. And they are hugely diverse, some toxic and some delicious. But mushrooms are some of the most misunderstood organisms on this planet. Many view them as dangerous or just as drugs. But in reality, they're a hugely diverse kingdom that has co-evolved with this planet. They are a huge part of all ecosystems, and we must recognize that.